Good morning, everyone. It's another beautiful day in my tiny shop, and today I'm working on some garage cabinets for a great friend and client of mine. And this time I'm going to be using maple for the faces of the cabinets. Poplar has gone through the roof and maple's come down, so we're switching gears here. I prefer working with poplar just due to the pliability of it and the ease of working with it, but maple sure is beautiful. So they got a free upgrade, and there's a little bit of chatter mark here on the way that this came as an S3S board. So I'm going to take that down like I did this side in the planer and leave about a 32nd of an inch left to use my drum sander to get it nice and smooth. Then we'll rip it into the rails and stiles to build the cabinet faces and move on to the next, and you'll get to see the plans for the project shortly as well. Stay tuned. So I have my drum sander here. This is the Supermax 1938. It's made by Laguna. It's one of my favorite tools. I buy Klingspor abrasives, and they sell a more aggressive than their standard silicon oxide. I believe it's called silicon dioxide. I always mix that up. But this blue one does not gum up or overheat as quickly. And I just always take a look at this. I'm going to run an eraser on that and try to get rid of any additional pitch or sawdust that's still there, and then I'm going to continue using this. This is 100 grit. Which, ideally if you're planing, you want to be down 80, 60 grit, something like that. But 100 is fine because we're not doing that much. And you're just going to turn this dial maybe an eighth of a turn at a time to make sure that we don't burn the wood or the sandpaper. There's our finished product, drum sanded at 100 grit. Compared to the backside, you can see that's how it came out of the planer. Some burn marks, some tear out, significant tear out there. This is the back, and the planer made it nice and flat, but it's the back, so that's fine. That's going to stay as it is. This is the front of the cabinet, and since we're not finishing it, they're going to be unfinished cabinets. That's our final sanding right there. I'm going to do a quick blade swap. These are both 40 tooth combination blades, but this Tenryu gold metal, it just cuts like glass, and I just got it back from the sharpener. And the less sanding I have to do on the edge that I cut, the more time I save. Not that I don't love the forest, but it's better for more aggressive work. Here we have it. Those are going to be the rails and stiles for the cabinet faces, and a little bit of trim if needed inside. All right, got the rails all drilled out, and you can see I drilled it intentionally on the side that I did not run through the drum sander because that's going to be hidden. The other side is finished and ready to go. Get those assembled into the stiles and get those cabinet faces done. Getting this first face frame cabinet set up. This is the biggest one. It's 8 feet tall by 40 inches wide. And you can see how big this thing is. That's why we're not going to be assembling the cabinets in my shop this time. We'll be doing that on site. So everything we do now is just to get it ready for installation on site. Okay, this next step, we're gonna rip this plywood. This is a maple faced ply for the drawer box. It's gonna rip it down to 4 3/8, which will be the height of the walls. And then I'm going to put my stops at 21 inches and do the sides. And I have, I think, 35 and 13/16 for the front and the back. And we'll get on to making those drawer boxes. Okay, got the sides of the drawer boxes cut. Now I'm gonna get the panels cut for the base. All right, got the track saw laid out and cut a 35 and 3, I guess I went to 3/4 to downsize just a tiny bit, make easier installation on this sheet of 1/4 inch HDF for the bases. And now I'm gonna flip it sideways and get some cross cuts out of there. And then I'll do some more with another sheet if needed. Okay, there we go. Got 4 cuts out of that sheet, and I'm gonna go see if I can find a smaller piece to get one more. Okay, got the dado blade with 2 stacks, which gives us a 1/4 inch, and we're at 3/8 of an inch high. We're gonna cut some dados into these drawer sides, and that's gonna be where the base sits once it's assembled. Okay, now that the drawer box sides and bottoms are done, nice and cut out, we're gonna go ahead and get those assembled. I'm gonna use a little bit of glue just in these rabbet joints here, and then I'll pin them in place with 1 inch 23 gauge pins. All right, there we go. That's 5 drawers. Gonna let the glue cure overnight. Got the rabbet joints. We're gonna cut in some notches in the bottom to fit the undermount drawer slides once that glue is cured. All right, just got back from Lowe's. I got my AC rated plywood from Lowe's. I'm using 1/2 inch for the body of these cabinets. That's quite a bit of plywood. Can you imagine? That's my cabinet list, and it requires that much. That's because these cabinets If it doesn't tell you, those things are gonna be huge. So fortunately, cold day, gonna be working in the shop, got the mini split heater on, and just be cutting the layout sizes I've got listed here on my cut list, and then we'll get on to joining. One of the nice things about a track saw is you can cut multiple sheets at the same time. So if you have multiple cuts that are going to be the same, this is a great way to save time. Much faster and easier to work with than pushing things on a table saw. All of the panels for the cabinet boxes have been cut. Putting them off to the side for now. And I'm going to get into my 3/4 inch panels for the doors and shelves. And once those are made, then I'll switch back to the 1/2 inch panels and start cutting the joints in them. If I haven't said enough times yet, I love track saws. That's 4 doors I made without having to do anything in terms of moving the plywood aside from putting it on the table. Just moving a 5 or 10 pound saw right there. And they're all exactly the same size. Little track saw tip here. Even if your boards are going to be making different parts, you can still square them up and get rid of these. Look at that rough edge we got on there. All at the same time. So I'm gonna flush this edge up, make it nice and clean, and then I'm gonna take a track square and run that smaller track saw guide on the other end and square up these boards all together, then take them apart and make individual pieces from each one. There I have the track square aligned, so it's on this new flush edge, and that's gonna give us our square dimensions, and then all the measurements will be taken from the square edges inward so that we're not messing up the squareness running off of those 2 factory edges. This far end here I have clamped to hold still. This side doesn't need a clamp. The weight of this and the grip foam on the back of this is enough to hold it steady to make that cut. All right, got the stop set up for the miter saw. I'm gonna cut these. These are gonna be the drawer faces. And you may wonder why the vertical grain. I just think it looks cool, and so do my clients. So we just like a little bit different here, and it'll match the vertical grain on the cabinet doors that are next to it. Get those cut, and then on to milling all the different things we need to do, the hinge bore cutouts and the joints on the cabinet boxes, and so on and so forth. So stay tuned. All right, I have my hinge boring jig set up. This is the LR32 system from Festool. I have my hinge bore set to do a 9/16 inch depth, and I'm going to stick with just doing this top side on all of my doors, including the ones that are not shown here. And that way I can just simply keep this attached, flip this around to the other side, and do all the other side at the same time. And that'll keep it equidistant on both sides and save a little bit of time by doing all at once. So since these doors are not asymmetrical, they're interchangeable to any side of the cabinet when you do it this way, as long as it's the right, still the same size door you're looking for. All right, now that I have the hinge bores drilled, I'm gonna use this Make It Snappy self-centering drill bit. It's gonna guide by this outer sleeve into these holes in the hinges, and that's gonna put that drill bit right where it needs to go. I'm gonna use my T-square to align the hinge, and that way my holes are ready to go, so when I go to screw these in, they're already square, and then they'll go in nice and easy. All right, so the next step is I'm gonna make a jig, which is going to allow us to make little handholds on these doors and the drawers as opposed to using hardware. And the way I'm gonna do that, I've got the jig set up, I'll show you in a second, is basically using a hole saw to cut the shape, and that's basically gonna give me an even radius. And then it's on a piece of scrap that's as long as my longest doors, which I'll eventually cut down to the next size down doors, and then all the way to the smallest. And that's gonna allow me to easily align that center line every time that I make a new drill. It's kind of like a story stick that I'm cutting. So stay tuned and I'll show you how that's going. All right, so here's the jig setup. I'm about to make my cut. What I did was I put some spaces on the bottom so that I've got some nice solid clamping surfaces, everything's screwed together. And I'm gonna drill on this line here, probably an inch in, and it's gonna make that half radius cut on this jig, and that's the center line of the jig. Then I'm gonna disassemble this whole thing, and that jig's gonna get screwed into the doors, and I'm gonna use a flush trim, or maybe I'll use a spiral fluted router bit with a guide to basically duplicate that radius on the doors. Okay, there we have our shape. All right, you can see the setup here. I have the jig screwed into the inside of this door, obviously on the opposite side of the hinges. And I have a router bit bushing that is basically a 1/16 of an inch wider than the bit, just big enough to fit that. This is a 1/2 inch spiral fluted router bit that's going to help pull those chips out. It makes a cleaner cut than if you use you could always use a flush trim bit with a bearing on one side if you don't have the bushings. And those will work, but they're going to give you more tear out. Typically, if you're using a flush trim, you need to pretty much cut this first with a jigsaw or bandsaw, and then you're just trimming it up. Whereas this is actually, because it's spiral fluted, it cuts clean enough that I don't need to do any of that pre-work. I can just get in there and it'll follow this line and make that cut on this door. There you can see, made a really nice clean cut. It's a lot cleaner than what the drill made, and only needs a little bit of sanding on the edges so that there's no splintering, which I'll get to on all the doors once they're all done. All right, got the tall and the next size down done. I'm going down one more size. Just want to show you how I'm doing this. Lining up the center line and then marking the edge. You can do the math too if you want, but this is fail safe. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it on both sides so that center line still lines up, and then all I have to do is lay this template onto the doors flush with the edge, and we'll be center line every time. All right, we have all of our cutouts for our handles in place. So next thing I'm gonna do is use my random orbit sander, and I have 100 grit on here, and I'm gonna come on and just round over these corners. I'm not gonna do like a large radius. Basically, I'm just trying to prevent splinters, and also putting a little bit of a broken edge, at least maybe a 1/16 of an inch of an edge on there, is gonna prevent this material from tearing out or splitting or flaking off. It just makes it more durable. So time for some podcasts because it's gonna take a while. All right, got the doors and the shelves all finished off, and now on to drilling pinholes in, I believe 3 of these cabinets are gonna have shelves. You can see what we have. I actually have 2 cabinet sides stacked on each other. Face on the inside is facing each other, and that way we can go straight through, and that's gonna ensure that these pinholes line up exactly the same on both sides. You can do these separately, but this is a faster way to do it, and it does ensure more precision. So you can see we have our holes. I actually flipped it over. You're just gonna take it and flip it like this, and then you can use the same stop on this side and the same starting mark on your jig to duplicate that on the opposite side. Since it's going straight through, it'll mirror that perfectly. Last but not least, I'm going to also pinhole the backs of these cabinets because that's gonna give that shelf an extra center support on the backside. You can also do this on the face frame. However, since these are garage cabinets and there's very large things going inside of it, I don't want to put a center support in the face frame because it's going to block access to those items. Okay, now that we're all pinholed, it's time to go ahead and start doing the domino joints. I'm going to put 1 domino on each corner, and that's just going to help alignment during assembly. It's also going to give it some structural rigidity while I'm assembling, and strength that holds while it's when it's done after it's glued up. So I have a lot of these to do. These are all gonna go here, and then on the bases, I'm gonna do the opposing sides that come into it. And then we'll get on to doing a dado for the back. I almost forgot, I'm gonna also do the face of this where the face frame gets installed. That's just gonna, again, it helps align things and really helps with assembly and strength. All right, I got all the joining done on the sides and the bases. This is now going to be the countertop on top of the tool chest. So I'm gonna put a domino in 3 spaces, and that'll help align the boards, get that clamped and pinned, and it should be ready to install. I'll deal with sanding that one after it's installed. All right, got the countertop and the backsplash clamped. I'm just gonna put that off to the side and let it cure. All right, got these dominoed. I added an extra support in the middle of these, the 3 largest ones I have. Just we have shelves, and so we can always put a shelf right there. That's gonna ensure that the sides of these cabinets stay square and they don't bow, because we are working with you know, wood that can warp and change over time. All right, the last step we're gonna do before it's ready for assembly is I'm gonna make a dado cut here, a 1/2 inch wide to accommodate the thickness of the back of the panel and a 1/2 inch from the edge. So I have my dado stack set up and ready to go. I'm gonna run that through every side on the inside where the back's gonna go, and on the base, because that's also gonna take it. And I have the blade set to just a 32nd of an inch higher than a 1/4 inch deep. And that gives us the right dimensions with a little bit of extra clearance for glue and assembly. Okay, there's all the parts. We have the face frames, we have the tops, the bottoms, the sides, we have the countertop, we have the doors, we have the shelves, we have the backs, and in the other garage we have the drawers, and this will all get loaded up into the big old van right there, and it's gonna be fun. We're gonna start installing tomorrow. Morning guys, time to go deliver. I just loaded the van. You can see I got the whole garage worth of cabinets in there that never would have fit unless they were flat packed. Probably would have taken 5 or 6 trips. So this will be my first time flat packing. Usually I just pay a cargo van, but I've had damage in delivery process early in other situations, and so I'm gonna give this a shot, see how it goes. Okay, at the client's place, that's where a couple of the cabinets are gonna go. I'm gonna put a bike hanger there, some tool hangers, and then three cabinets here. Time to get started. Okay, got everything laid out. Those are the tops and bottoms, the sides, the shelves, the doors, some filler, the backs, and the fronts. Time to break out the tools and start assembling. Turned that air compressor on and it just would not build pressure. Too cold, it froze in the van overnight, so I put that in my client's house to warm up. And while it's heating up, I'm just gonna go ahead and start putting in dominoes. I put some glue into our joints, and I'm gonna put some dominoes in all these, and then they'll be ready to go once it's time to assemble. Okay, I got the top on, and that's glued. It's sitting in there with some pins holding it in place, and I put some glue in our back channel. I'm gonna drop that in, and this is gonna kind of triangulate the cabinet and make it easier to assemble the rest of it. And we'll get on the bottom after this and then work on getting the face on. Okay, got the back on. Now I'm gonna do the top, and right now this connection is just butted together with some nails, and I will put a bead of glue in there before it's done. Okay, you just gotta put this side on, and then we'll do the face. All right, this is our small cabinet with drawers, and I just gonna throw some dominoes in those corners and get the face on and tack it in and let it cure overnight so we can start moving it around and installing the next time I come back. Okay, first one's done, and I put a 1/2 inch piece of scrap in the back so that when I screw it to the wall in the center, it doesn't bow this back and then cause warping to the cabinet. So I'm pretty happy with how that went with assembling on site. It sure saved me a lot of time in delivery. And now I just have the rest of them to build. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that off camera, and we'll get back to filming once we start installing. All right, that's the backs of 3 of them. Still got those to work on. We got all the cabinets built today. This big one, oh. There's a reason I normally do big cabinets like that in 2 pieces. I wouldn't do a finished cabinet like that. It's just too easy to ding up a nice interior cabinet that way. But that's a wrap for the day. It's getting cold, it's getting dark. I'll be back at it on Monday. Over and out. Welcome back, guys. I'm here to install the cabinets, and I have this one shimmed on the bottom and on the back. I pinned those shims in place just to hold them still while I work on it, and I'm gonna run an SDS drill straight through it and throw in a 1/4 inch by 2 3/4 concrete bolt in there, along with a washer to hold it, give it a little more staying power on the back of this board. And I always go through my shims whenever possible, because that ensures that, you know, over time those shims can't just fall loose and then the cabinet loses its secure level. See. Loss of words, you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, I got one in place, and before I get too carried away, I'm gonna screw these cabinets together. I'm gonna put one screw in the top here where I got it flush. It's being held in place by the clamp. And then once I get that in place, it'll pivot off of that, and I can flush up the base and screw those together. Then I can get a couple more screws in on the lower cabinet, and then also on this taller one. You can kind of see I put some plywood underneath the bottom there so that it's a full length shim essentially, and I just ripped them down to the width they need to be on the table saw to fit that space. That's just gonna give the cabinet a lot more support. I put a lot of these bolts in the wall, but they just don't hold well in the cinder blocks, so I'm gonna also, just as a sort of a backup precaution, because I just couldn't tighten them too much, put a couple in each corner going into the slab, because that slab concrete is just a lot more durable than the cinder block material, and that'll ensure that these cabinets are safe. Okay, got all the cabinets installed. Time to start putting on the doors. So I'm getting the hinges. I already have them pre-drilled, so those will screw right in there with some 5/8 inch screws. And I have 2 pieces of 1/2-inch lumber, and that's going to put them an inch higher, but not to forget, we did shim these. So I took another piece of that shim, and that's where the bottom of that door should fit in order to have symmetrical distance top and bottom once I get that center one spaced. Okay, got them in. I like these little half moon handles. They're going to do the trick. Now I'm going to put this piece here, and that's our 1/2-inch spacer for the bottom of the top doors. And that'll give us an inch clearance at the top as well. All right, got all the doors on. I'm gonna do the drawers tomorrow. I have a handy tool that's gonna make that easier. And now I'm gonna get the shelves inside, which pretty simple, just putting the shelf pins in. All right, shelves in place. I did 16 inches on the bottom and then roughly 11 inches on each upper shelf, since the heavier stuff should be down low. Just have to do the rest of these and on to the next. All right, time to put the drawer slides in. On this bottom level, I put basically just 2 1/2-inch pieces of scrap under it because I have an inch of space to fill at the bottom, and that keeps the drawer level. And when I screw this piece in here, I'm using a flat 1-inch screw to clear the drawers nicely. That holds it parallel to the wall back there. So the easy way to do this is to get a long extension on your driver and just throw a 5/8 screw on there and put 2 screws in the back on that panel, and that'll hold it in place permanently. And then I'll show you what I do for these upper ones with a jig. Okay, this is the jig. It's made by Rockler. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's basically an undermount drawer slide jig. It has magnets that you would fix to the side of the drawer slide, and when you clamp it to the face frame, it holds it perpendicular to the face frame, keeps the drawer level, and just makes the process very easy for these upper drawers. Okay, got all the drawer slides in. I pulled these bottom ones out. I'm gonna start down here, and I'm gonna lay these, you can see these cutouts sit on top of the drawers. And this is where this piece comes in. So once I set that on there, I'm gonna put my hand underneath and I'm gonna pull on this plastic tab until it clicks on both sides. And that's how we know the drawer is engaged, and then push it back in and we'll be set. We'll do to the rest of them. All right, it's engaged. There we go. All right, drawers are installed. I'm now putting the faces on, and I'm spacing it 1 inch from the bottom because we do have that 1/2-inch shim on the bottom, and so the 1/2-inch on top of that gets us up to where we need to be. And then I want a 1/2 inch between that door and these drawer faces to give it enough clearance for opening, which then gives us a 1/4 inch on the end there. Gonna go ahead and use my 21 gauge pinner and just pin those in place temporarily, and then I'll get them all set. If anything needs to be adjusted, I can use my mallet to tap those around a little bit with these pins in place, and then I'll pull them open and affix them permanently from the back with screws. Okay, I got all these drawer faces on. I'm now gonna use my flush trim, not my flush trim, sorry, my router bushing and the spiral flute to flush these internal drawer faces with the external ones, give a little bit better hand clearance. And just note to you guys, I wouldn't probably do these handhelds on a kitchen cabinet if you're trying to have close clearances, because as you get closer to the top, you end up with less ability to get your fingers in. For the garage, this will be fine, but you probably wouldn't want to see the face frame of the cabinet there, for example, if this was in a kitchen. But these are still great on doors and still very handy, and you could probably do a frameless cabinet that's this way if it was in the kitchen. Okay, there we go. I got these all done. I sanded off the edge so it's not sharp. Just enough room for your fingers. This one I cut into with a drill bit, edge of a drill bit, just to kind of give us a little more space for the finger, so we can get it in there. And yeah, it all works out. All right, that's a wrap. Got all these cabinets built and installed. I really like how the half moon handles worked out. We got our adjustable shelves in there. Got our full extension drawers, just like a kitchen drawer, nice and soft. And I threw in some tool racks and a couple bicycle hang-ups, and trimmed out their doors as well. Got more tool racks in there. So anyway, if you guys like that video and you want to see more like it, check out my channel. Please subscribe to stay tuned. I also do a lot of stuff with my Tundra off-road and some mechanical items there, and some cooking. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.